When my fiancé's mother, Margaret, cornered me in the empty church sanctuary where David and I were supposed to be married in 3 weeks, and delivered a vicious speech about how I was completely unsuitable for her son and would never be accepted into their family regardless of what David believed about our relationship, her words cut so deeply into my heart and self-worth that I felt everything I had believed about love, acceptance, and my future happiness crumble around me as I stood there in my wedding dress during what should have been a joyful final fitting and photography session with our families. The cruelty in her voice as she systematically destroyed my confidence and sense of belonging was matched only by the calculated precision of her attacks on everything from my appearance and family background to my education and career choices that she deemed inadequate for someone marrying into what she constantly referred to as our family's legacy and social standing, that I would apparently contaminate through my presence and influence on David's future prospects and reputation. Her ultimatum that I call off the wedding immediately or face a lifetime of harassment, exclusion, and deliberate sabotage of my marriage was delivered with such cold certainty that I realized this woman would never accept me as her daughter-in-law and would make both David's and my life miserable if I proceeded with our wedding plans that had been months in the making and had consumed most of my savings and emotional energy as I tried to create the perfect celebration of our love and commitment. What I did next with the $50,000 I had saved for our dream wedding would shock everyone who knew me as a practical and conservative person with money. But it would also demonstrate that sometimes the most powerful response to cruelty and rejection is an act of radical generosity that transforms pain into purpose and shows that love and kindness can triumph over hatred and prejudice when we choose to lift others up, instead of allowing ourselves to be torn down by people who mistake social status for human worth. The wedding planning process had been a source of both joy and mounting tension over the previous 8 months as I worked to create a celebration that would honor both my vision for our special day and the increasingly demanding expectations of Margaret and other members of David's family, who seemed to view our wedding as an opportunity to demonstrate their social status and maintain their reputation within the exclusive community where they had established themselves as prominent figures in business, charity, and cultural organizations. My own family was loving and supportive, but had limited financial resources to contribute to the elaborate celebration that Margaret insisted was necessary for a proper wedding that would reflect appropriately on the family name and social position that she was determined to protect from any association with what she considered my inferior background and inadequate preparation for joining their elevated social circle. The $50,000 that I had saved for our wedding represented years of careful budgeting, sacrificing luxuries and vacations, working overtime hours at my job as a graphic designer, and taking on freelance projects during evenings and weekends to accumulate the funds necessary to pay for the elaborate ceremony and reception that would satisfy Margaret's requirements for appropriateness and elegance, while also creating the magical day that David and I had dreamed about since we first began discussing marriage and our future together. Every dollar had been earned through my own hard work and determination to create something beautiful and meaningful that would mark the beginning of our married life with celebration and joy that would be remembered fondly by our families and friends for years to come. The venue selection had been a compromise between my preference for a charming garden setting that would be romantic and intimate, and Margaret's insistence on a prestigious location that would impress the guest list of prominent business associates and social connections who would be attending our wedding as representatives of David's professional and family networks. The final choice of St. Catherine's Episcopal Church, with its historic architecture and beautiful stained glass windows, satisfied both requirements while providing the elegant backdrop that would complement the expensive floral arrangements, professional photography, and formal reception that were essential elements of Margaret's vision for an appropriate wedding celebration. The guest list had grown from our original plan for 100 close family members and friends to over 300 invitees, as Margaret continuously added business associates, social connections, and distant relatives who she claimed were essential for maintaining family relationships and professional obligations that would be important for David's future career advancement and social standing within their community. Each addition to the guest list represented additional costs for catering, seating, favors, and other reception elements that stretched my carefully planned budget to its absolute limits, while creating a celebration that felt more like a business networking event than an intimate expression of love and commitment between two people who wanted to build a life together. The dress selection process had been particularly challenging as Margaret accompanied me to appointments at bridal boutiques and consistently criticized my choices as inappropriate, unflattering, or insufficiently elegant for someone marrying into their family, ultimately pressuring me to purchase a designer gown that cost nearly 3 times my original budget. But that met her standards for what a proper bride should wear to ensure that wedding photographs would reflect appropriately on the family's image and reputation. The expensive dress required professional alterations that added additional costs while creating a look that satisfied Margaret's requirements, but made me feel like I was wearing a costume rather than expressing my own style and personality on what should have been the most important day of my life. The catering arrangements had been another source of conflict, as Margaret rejected my preferences for a buffet-style reception with comfort foods that would create a warm and welcoming atmosphere in favor of a formal plated dinner, with multiple courses and expensive wine selections that would demonstrate sophistication and social status to the prominent guests who would be evaluating every aspect of the celebration as a reflection of the family's taste and financial resources. The final catering contract exceeded my budget projections by nearly $15,000, but was presented as non-negotiable for achieving the level of elegance that Margaret deemed essential for avoiding embarrassment or social criticism from their exclusive circle of friends and associates. The photography and videography package had been upgraded multiple times based on Margaret's insistence that we needed professional documentation that would be suitable for publication in social magazines and newspapers that covered prominent weddings and social events in our city, creating additional expenses that consumed the contingency funds I had set aside for unexpected costs or last-minute additions to our celebration plans. The final package included engagement photos, bridal portraits, ceremony coverage, reception documentation, and a professional video that would preserve every moment of our wedding day for posterity, while also providing material that could be shared with media outlets that covered society events and family milestones. The floral arrangements had been designed by one of the city's most expensive and exclusive florists, based on Margaret's contacts and reputation requirements, featuring rare imported flowers and elaborate designs that would create dramatic visual impact, while demonstrating the family's willingness to invest in luxury and beauty for their son's wedding celebration. The final floral budget exceeded $10,000 for ceremony decorations, bridal bouquet, bridesmaids' flowers, boutonnieres, centerpieces, and additional arrangements that would transform both the church and reception venue into settings worthy of the prominent guests who would be attending our celebration. The mounting stress and financial pressure of meeting Margaret's escalating expectations while trying to maintain my own vision for a meaningful and joyful celebration had been taking a toll on my relationship with David, who seemed caught between his desire to support my preferences and his reluctance to confront his mother's controlling behavior and unreasonable demands that were transforming our wedding planning process into a battleground where love and personal expression were being sacrificed to social expectations and family politics that prioritized image over authenticity and genuine celebration. The confrontation in the church sanctuary occurred during what should have been a peaceful and joyful final dress fitting with our photographer, capturing behind-the-scenes moments that would become treasured memories of our wedding preparation process, but instead became the setting for Margaret's calculated attempt to destroy my confidence and force me to abandon the marriage that she viewed as beneath David's social status and inconsistent with her plans for his future, that apparently required a different type of wife with better family connections and more impressive credentials than I could provide. Margaret's speech began with false concern about my happiness and well-being, suggesting that I might be making a mistake by marrying into a family with different values and expectations than those I had grown up with, but quickly escalated into direct attacks on my character, appearance, intelligence, and suitability as a wife for someone with David's education, career prospects, and social obligations that required a partner who could enhance rather than diminish his reputation and advancement opportunities. Her systematic destruction of my self-esteem included criticisms of my family's modest background, my education at a state university rather than an elite private institution, my career as a graphic designer rather than a prestigious profession like law or medicine, and my appearance and social skills that she claimed would embarrass the family at important business and social events. The specific insults that Margaret delivered with cold precision were designed to attack every aspect of my identity and worth as a person, suggesting that I was too plain, too ordinary, too poorly educated, and too socially inadequate to be an appropriate wife for her son who deserved someone who could contribute to his success, rather than holding him back through association with my inferior background and limited social connections. Her prediction that David would eventually realize his mistake and resent me for trapping him in an inappropriate marriage created devastating doubt about his genuine feelings and commitment that made me question everything I thought I knew about our relationship and his love for me as a person, rather than someone he was settling for, due to loneliness or temporary infatuation. The ultimatum that Margaret delivered at the end of her cruel speech gave me 24 hours to call off the wedding and disappear from David's life permanently, with the promise that if I refused to comply voluntarily, she would use her influence and resources to destroy my career, reputation, and financial stability, while making our marriage so miserable and conflict-filled that we would inevitably divorce under circumstances that would leave me with nothing, while David moved on to find a more suitable partner who could provide the social and professional advantages that his family expected from a daughter-in-law. The emotional devastation I experienced after Margaret's attack left me unable to think clearly about wedding plans, relationship decisions, or any practical matters related to the celebration that was supposed to take place in less than 3 weeks. As I struggled to process the cruelty of her words and the implications of her threats, while also trying to understand whether David was aware of his mother's opposition to our marriage and her determination to prevent or destroy our relationship, through whatever means necessary to protect what she saw as the family's interests and reputation. The sleepless night that followed Margaret's confrontation was spent walking through my neighborhood and trying to make sense of the impossible situation that had been created by someone who was supposed to become my family, but who had instead revealed herself to be an enemy determined to destroy my happiness and self-worth through psychological warfare and social manipulation that would continue throughout our marriage if I proceeded with wedding plans that now seemed naive and hopeless given the level of opposition and hostility I would face from David's family. The decision that crystallized during those dark hours of walking and thinking was that I could not and would not enter into a marriage where I would be constantly fighting for acceptance and respect from people who had already decided that I was unworthy of love and inclusion in their family, regardless of how much I loved David or how committed I believed he was to protecting and supporting me against his mother's cruelty and manipulation that would undoubtedly continue and escalate after our wedding, when she would have even more opportunities to interfere in our relationship and undermine our happiness. The realization that Margaret's behavior would poison any chance of building a healthy and joyful marriage with David led to my decision to cancel our wedding and end our engagement. But the question of what to do with the $50,000 I had saved and already committed to various vendors and services created an opportunity to transform my pain and disappointment into something positive and meaningful that would honor the love I had felt for David, while also demonstrating that rejection and cruelty could not destroy my capacity for generosity and kindness toward others who might be struggling with their own challenges and dreams. The inspiration for giving my wedding fund to a stranger came during my morning walk through downtown when I encountered Maria, a young single mother sitting outside the courthouse with her 2 small children, while waiting for assistance with housing issues that had left them temporarily homeless after an eviction that had occurred when Maria lost her job due to a workplace injury that had made it impossible for her to continue working in the physical therapy clinic where she had been employed as a rehabilitation assistant helping patients recover from injuries and surgeries. The conversation I had with Maria while her children played nearby revealed that she was a certified physical therapy assistant with several years of experience and excellent references from employers and patients who valued her skill and compassionate care, but that her recent injury had created temporary disability that prevented her from working while also generating medical bills and lost income that had quickly exhausted her savings and led to the eviction that had left her family without stable housing while she sought assistance from social services and charitable organizations. Maria's story of working multiple jobs while attending school to earn her certification, supporting her children as a single mother after their father abandoned the family, and building a successful career helping others recover from injuries and disabilities resonated with my own values about hard work, education, and service to others, while also highlighting the cruel irony that someone who had dedicated her career to helping others was now in desperate need of help herself due to circumstances beyond her control that had temporarily disrupted her ability to work and provide for her family. The decision to give Maria my entire wedding fund was spontaneous, but felt absolutely right as a way to transform the pain and disappointment of my canceled wedding into something that could change her family's life, while also honoring the values of love, generosity, and service to others that I had hoped to bring to my marriage, but that could be expressed more authentically through helping someone who genuinely needed and deserved support during a difficult time in her life. The practical arrangements for transferring the $50,000 to Maria required careful planning to ensure that the gift would be structured in ways that would provide maximum benefit to her family, while also protecting her from potential tax complications or other unintended consequences that might arise from receiving such a substantial, unexpected windfall from someone she had just met in a chance encounter outside the courthouse. The legal consultation I arranged helped establish a trust fund that would provide Maria with immediate access to funds needed for housing deposits, moving expenses, and basic living costs, while also creating longer-term resources for her children's education and her own professional development, as she recovered from her injury and returned to work in the physical therapy field, where her skills and experience were valued by employers and patients who benefited from her expertise and compassionate care. The housing assistance that the fund provided allowed Maria to secure a safe and stable apartment in a good neighborhood, with access to quality schools for her children and convenient transportation to medical facilities where she could continue her rehabilitation while also beginning the process of returning to work as her injury healed and her physical capabilities returned to normal levels that would allow her to resume her career helping others recover from their own injuries and disabilities. The educational support that was established through the trust fund created opportunities for Maria's children to participate in after-school programs, summer camps, and enrichment activities that would support their academic and social development, while also providing safe and constructive supervision during times when Maria would be working or attending her own medical appointments and rehabilitation sessions that were necessary for her complete recovery and return to full employment. The professional development assistance that was included in the trust fund would allow Maria to pursue additional certifications and training that would enhance her career prospects and earning potential in the physical therapy field, while also providing resources for continuing education that would keep her current with advances in rehabilitation techniques and technologies that could benefit her patients and increase her value to employers who prioritize quality care and excellent outcomes. The media attention that the story of my wedding fund donation generated created widespread interest in both Maria's situation and the circumstances that had led to my decision to transform personal disappointment into charitable action that would benefit someone who deserved support and encouragement during a difficult period in her life. The coverage highlighted issues of workplace injury, single motherhood, housing insecurity, and the importance of community support for families facing temporary crises that could be resolved with appropriate assistance and resources. The response from community members who learned about Maria's story and my donation led to additional support and assistance for her family, including job offers from physical therapy clinics that valued her experience and reputation, donations of furniture and household items for her new apartment, and volunteer assistance with childcare and transportation that would help her manage the logistics of returning to work while ensuring that her children's needs were met during the transition. The positive outcome for Maria and her family validated my decision to use my wedding fund for charitable purposes rather than allowing the money to remain tied up in canceled vendor contracts and deposits for services that would never be provided, while also demonstrating that unexpected generosity could create opportunities and hope for people who had been struggling with circumstances beyond their control and who deserved better outcomes than their current situations were providing. The personal satisfaction I experienced from helping Maria's family rebuild their lives after a period of crisis and uncertainty was far greater than any happiness I might have found in proceeding with a wedding that would have been overshadowed by family conflict and opposition from people who had demonstrated their inability to accept and welcome me as a valued member of their family circle. The transformation of my pain into purpose created meaning and fulfillment that honored my values while also providing practical assistance to people who genuinely needed and appreciated the support they received. The relationship with David ended permanently as a result of my decision to cancel our wedding, rather than subject ourselves to a lifetime of interference and hostility from his mother, who had made it clear that she would never accept our marriage or treat me with the respect and kindness that should characterize family relationships built on love and mutual support, rather than social status and exclusionary attitudes toward people who didn't meet arbitrary standards for acceptability. The lesson that emerged from this experience was that sometimes the most loving and wise decision is to walk away from relationships and situations that require us to compromise our dignity and self-worth in order to gain acceptance from people who are incapable of appreciating our value and treating us with the respect and kindness that everyone deserves, regardless of their background or social status. The decision to transform disappointment into charitable action created positive outcomes that honored my values, while also demonstrating that rejection and cruelty from others cannot destroy our capacity for love and generosity when we choose to focus on helping others rather than dwelling on our own pain and disappointment. Today, several years after giving my wedding fund to Maria and her children, they have rebuilt their lives with the stability and security that the financial assistance provided, and Maria has returned to her career as a physical therapy assistant while also pursuing additional education that will advance her professional prospects and earning potential. Her children are thriving in school and participating in activities that are developing their talents and interests, while also building friendships and community connections that will support their continued growth and success. The friendship that developed between Maria and me has been one of the most rewarding relationships in my life, built on mutual respect, shared values, and genuine appreciation for each other's character and contributions to our community that extends far beyond the financial assistance that brought us together during a moment of crisis and uncertainty in both our lives. The experience of helping her family during their time of need, while also navigating my own relationship challenges, created bonds of trust and understanding that have enriched both our lives in ways that continue to provide support and encouragement during subsequent challenges and celebrations. Looking back on the decision to give my wedding fund to a stranger, rather than proceeding with a marriage that would have been undermined by family hostility and rejection, I realized that Margaret's cruelty actually provided me with an opportunity to discover more authentic forms of love and generosity that honored my values while also creating positive change in the lives of people who deserve support and encouragement during difficult times in their lives. Was I crazy to give away $50,000 to someone I had just met instead of using the money for my own needs or finding ways to salvage my relationship with David despite his mother's opposition to our marriage? Should I have tried harder to win Margaret's acceptance or found ways to proceed with our wedding despite her threats and hostility? Would you have made the same choice if faced with such cruel rejection from your future mother-in-law and the opportunity to help someone who genuinely needed assistance? Sometimes the most powerful response to rejection and cruelty is to demonstrate through our actions that love and generosity can triumph over hatred and prejudice when we choose to lift others up rather than allowing ourselves to be diminished by people who mistake social status for human worth and who are incapable of recognizing the value and dignity that exists in every person, regardless of their background or circumstances.